All right. Well, David, Lord, thanks so much for joining us today. Just for those who haven't seen any of these videos before, this is a series of interviews that we're doing with people who have excelled in careers that might not be something that just everybody gravitates towards. So we're trying to open people's eyes that it's a big, wide world out there. There's a lot of different paths you can take, and they're not always the things that people think of as your traditional career path. So David is a stunt professional, and he's worked on many movies and TV shows, things that everybody's heard of before, like Cobra Kai, Black Panther 2, even going way back to Mel Gibson's classic, The Patriot. So a lot of experience there, and we look forward to learning a little something about being a stunt professional. So David, thanks for joining.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So maybe the first thing to do is I think people have a preconception of what it is to be a stunt professional. Why don't you tell us, what is it? What is the job?
It's mostly being gainfully unemployed, but other than that, it's a very broad field, and people from engineers. I have friends that graduated at Georgia Tech with engineering degrees that are stunt guys. I have other friends that were ex special forces, others that were Olympic level athletes. It just kind of it's a very broad spectrum of people that do it, and it's hard to just narrow it down to say, well, you're on the path to this because of that. But we do a lot of different things. Sometimes we're setting up stunts and doing some rigging, and that's a lot of engineering kind of things, and a lot of construction related kind of things, and a lot of physics and physiology and chemistry, and you have to know a lot of different things. And
Because you're setting up your own stunts.
oh yeah, you're responsible
Okay.
for your own safety frequently, or your team is. And but it's all those obscure things you wouldn't connect to being a professional stuntman
Okay.
are relative, because I studied chemistry, I studied biology, I studied psychology, I studied photography, and all these other kind of things. I've done a lot of construction stuff. I was a commercial diver for 15 years, and that's all physics and physiology
Okay.
and that. And it's uh, it's it's a very broad spectrum of things.
So it sounds like you almost kind of play consultant to, say, the director, when the director says, hey, look, this is kind of what I'm after. How can we make this work on camera?
Correct. And we do that frequently. And a lot of my work now is underwater.
Okay.
And so there's certain considerations of how we can do this without hurting people. And we're doing some very difficult things underwater with a lot of different people involved. And it can be very dangerous.
What's the difference in someone that you would consider to be a stunt professional versus a stunt coordinator? Because that's a title you'll see in the credits every once in a while.
Stunt coordinator is kind of the manager of all the stunts. He frequently will design the stunts of how they're done, like a big fight scene or something, or he
Okay.
may have somebody on his team that's the fight uh, choreographer for that,
Okay.
and everything's a collaboration, and so part of being in this, you need to have good team skills, because everything's a collaboration, and you'll pull in somebody that may be a specialist in doing fire stuff and setting people on fire. He may know more than you do, but you're the coordinator and you manage that being done. You'll have a good
Okay.
working knowledge, and that's how you got the job. Or it could be somebody jumping a car, and you may not be great at everything, but your job as a stunt coordinator is to bring in the people that do.
Okay, so
And then
is
you
that the person
collaborate.
that would call you for the job, as the stunt coordinator, as opposed to like a casting director?
Well, there's times when I will work as a stunt coordinator and sometimes as a marine
Okay.
coordinator, which will be the water aspect of what's going on in the set, and the stunts related within occasionally. But it's both of those titles kind of interchange depending on what it is,
Right.
and sometimes the uh, stunt coordinator will hire me and put me as Marine coordinator so I can have conversations with all of his people. It's just kind of um, um, you know, you have to be a department head kind of thing.
Right,
And when
right,
you're on
right.
the same level, then you can have those conversations rather than go to your boss, have him explain to his bosses how we're going to do this, and then it comes filtering back down.
Okay.
So sometimes they'll just say, David, you're Marine coordinator. You can talk freely in a large group of people, and we can figure this out all together.
Now, on a movie that's as big as, The Patriot or Black Panther 2, that I'm sure had multiple filming locations. In The Patriot, there are lots of explosions, there's battles, there's fighting. Black Panther 2 was a little different, but how big is the stunt team?
It can be enormous. I think on the Patriot we had probably 100 guys,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
Black Panther, I have no idea. I was doing mostly the water stuff on that, but it had to be maybe a couple of hundred people. And see, back
Okay.
in the old days, they didn't always list us in the credits. They'd
Right.
list a few, and then they wouldn't list everybody else. But we still got paid the same. But before that, they didn't list us at all
Okay.
because they wanted the stars to be viewed as being the swashbuckler,
Right.
adventurous guys. They all had stunt doubles.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
but it
So,
doesn't mean that they don't do things occasionally that we have to shepherd them through for certain shots. But
okay.
liability wise, there's only so much that it's responsible to put them in,
Right.
and I've told um, actors before that were very athletic and wanted to do their own stunts. I said, if you get so much as a busted lip, we all have to go home. Everything
Yeah.
shuts down. Now, if you want to do this in my backyard when we finish this, then sure, I'll. But right now, we have to be professionals and
Right.
responsible for everybody who requires for your face to still be pretty. I'm sure
Yeah.
you can do it, and I would love to do it with you. Let's finish this job, and then we'll go do it together.
So how did you find your way into this, in the first place? I know you're based in Atlanta, so the Atlanta film
Mhm.
market really has only exploded over, say, the last 15 or 20 years. Now there's been a presence here, but it's not like this was what it is today when you first started. So how did you wind up doing this?
When I first started, there were 6 of us. That was it. And stunt work or film work at all was just kind of hit and miss for a lot of folks, whether you're Atlanta or LA. But the volume of work they have now is tremendous. And if you want to get in the film industry, there's so many places to be in. If you just want to do something creative and different,
Hmm.
you know, there's a place for you in the film business outside of just stunt work. Whether you want to do lighting or make props or do set construction or just there's just anything you can imagine. They'll find a place for somebody that shows up with a good work ethic and a good attitude.
That's
You'll
funny. I tell
find a
people
place.
that all the time. You want an advantage with work?
Mhm.
Show up every day and act like you want to be there. Managers love that.
Right,
Teach you everything else.
right, and it, it if you show up with a good work ethic and a good attitude, it's contagious. Just like a bad attitude and a bad work ethic. Nobody wants that around. It's
Right.
a poison that infects everybody around you.
So getting into the business, did you just wander onto a set of something that was being shot here? Did you have somebody
I
call
actually
you?
did. It was Sharky's machine.
Oh, cool.
Sharky's
Okay.
machine was being shot here in
Burt
Atlanta,
Reynolds.
and I broke on the set. Yeah,
Yeah.
I broke on the set, and I started wandering around like I was supposed to be there, and can't do that so much anymore. But back then you could just show up and have one name, and if you had a clipboard in your hand and you looked kind of official, even when I was a kid, I was like 20, and you had a stern look on your face like somebody was in trouble, nobody would question you. But if you showed up with your eyes all wide open, going, "Oh, by the way, I'm looking for so and so," no, you weren't going to do that. But
Yeah.
if you had a clipboard and a stern look on your face, and you had uh, uh, a deliberateness to your step, they just point you in a direction and they send you over there and say,
So
"Oh,
what
I
they
think he's over there."
what somebody said, hey, who wants to run this stick of dynamite, down
Yeah,
Peachtree Street? What was
yeah. I wasn't there for that, but but I used to do special effects stuff too because stunt work wasn't exactly back to back employment. So again, I had to diversify. And when I was doing low budget kind of movies, sometimes there wasn't a special effects guy there to babysit you. You were in charge of doing your own things, which means you learn how to blow things up and you learned how to make things fall apart in a certain way, in a safe way. You had to know how to engineer, how to build your own ramp to jump a car, and how to make the explosion happen whenever it crashed into what it was supposed to.
wow.
And so but again, it goes back to physics and physiology and all the chemistry and all these other things that you wouldn't think would be required. You would think that you'd be great just being a boneheaded jock. That is not true. Those guys don't last long.
Okay.
One, they can't communicate very well. You have to have good communication skills as well. That people trust you, and it's if you present yourself as somebody who has made a series of good choices through your uh, fitness regimen, uh, clear eyedness, good work ethic, and all these other things, people will trust you because
Okay.
you look like you have
Yeah.
credibility.
So
But
you
it's
you came
important to,
yeah, so you came in with a background that was fairly diversified. You had some knowledge in things like you said, like chemistry and physics and things like that. You understood the basics of how things got put together and how things fell apart.
yeah.
Since you've been doing it, what skills have you developed that have maybe kind of surprised you that like, wow, I've really become good at this, and wind the clock back and I never would have thought this would be in my, wheelhouse.
Well, let me back up for just a second. When I first started doing stunts, I was 20 years old, and I knew that I needed something to supplement that was going to build um, that foundation to get me employed. I was within a half second of a state record in swimming. I wasn't a state champion in wrestling, but I beat a lot of them. I was a martial artist and um, used to be a sparring partner for a world champion. Uh, I but I needed something else, and so I went into commercial diving, and I thought that that would be a good background for any water stuff to be in that top 1 or 2% of guys. And I was in the top 1 or 2% of guys in all those things I just mentioned. Um, but that's who you're competing
Okay.
against.
And it's
You know,
interesting you say
you're
that because
competing against guys that were in special forces, Olympians, in sports and every different kind, and people who graduated Georgia Tech
yeah,
with engineering degrees. It's so from that I started getting work. The back to your question, the skill that I didn't think that would be as useful that I've developed over the years is psychology.
oh, interesting.
I've been studying psychology for over 40 years because whether in society in general, I didn't want to be in the mental health field because I didn't think it was healthy to be around people who were unhealthy every day. But uh, whether you like it or not, you're in the mental health field just by existing and being in any kind of work environment, especially whenever you're around a bunch of people who chose differently in life to be
Right.
something that's different. Um, Crazy people are fun. They're a lot of fun,
Yeah.
but you have to be able to recognize, there's some people who are going to be difficult, and so studying psychology and knowing the things you can help and things that you can't, being compassionate to people who may have had struggles that you don't know about, but knowing when uh, people need a little more understanding, a little more patience, and guide them through different struggles. And when I'm coaching somebody doing something very difficult, whether it's an actor or a stunt person, that may not be their cup of tea, but they're a good double for it, and so they have to get through it because they accepted the job.
So is
Then
it,
you've got to break things down in a very calm way.
yeah, you've touched on a few things that I just am all over all the time, whether it's a blog post or a piece of advice for somebody. One is building what I call that asset stack, and those are skills, experiences, and contacts that
Mhm.
you have to be effective in your job. And when you can identify what's needed in that job that you ultimately want, then you kind of know how to fill the gaps, which you went out and did. You learned how, you were good at martial arts, you wrestled,
Mhm.
um, became a commercial diver, knowing that,
Yeah,
okay, this water world is different than the other
yeah.
areas of this. But then you touched also on competition. Every job has competition,
Mhm.
and people that fail to recognize that the company that employs you, they're looking for value. They're trying to get the most
Right.
quality work that they can get for whatever they can pay. And whoever can produce the best quality work is the one that they want to work with the exception of there's a third part to it that you mentioned, the psychology of it. If you're difficult to work
Mhm.
with, nobody wants a problem on the set. Nobody wants a problem in the
Right.
office. If you're a problem, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how good your work is, you're a hassle.
Right.
So that's
Right.
that's great.
Well, credibility is built off results.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you going back to when you look like you're somebody's writing a book on your life, it's going to be titled A Series of Good Choices or A Series of Bad Choices. Or nobody's writing a book about you. You're
Yeah.
one or the other.
Right.
So if you have built that foundation of good choices and good results, then you have credibility. You build a reputation of being the person that figured something out, got something done, and nobody got hurt.
Yeah. That and
So,
that's
and there's
God,
no
that's
such thing as
interesting
an
because
unrealistic.
it
Go
just
ahead.
sounds like when you show up, nothing is totally planned for you yet. When you show
No.
up, the only thing is some idea in the director's head of what he wants it to
Mhm.
look like. But then you've got to help figure out, all right, we're going to need these things. It's
Mhm.
not formulaic. It's very much creative
Well,
to get there.
there are times when there's a little more thought that went into it, but the more difficult things are, um, the more preparation you need to pull it off
Hmm.
safely. There was a time when it was real cowboy days and just go over there and do this, blah blah blah. You got 5 minutes. That wasn't good,
No.
But the business has changed, and a lot of those guys aren't around anymore, or they didn't last long. There's just different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
So it's a very different world, and society's different now. It's when I was coming up, it was well. Let me break it down like this: there are stunt guys that were one of two guys. There were the guys that viewed themselves as professional athletes and they conducted themselves accordingly, and there was people that wanted to live the rock star lifestyle and they conducted themselves accordingly.
Hmm.
The rock star guys didn't like those of us that were the professional athletes because we weren't getting drunk, we weren't doing drugs, and we weren't partying all the time. We were showing up to do a job and to get paid for it and make sure no one got hurt. The
Right.
other guys, it was a different crowd, and so every once in a while we'd overlap, and it would be a challenge, but you find your vibe, you find your tribe, and so you tend to click up with the people who are like and kind,
Hmm.
and so just choose wisely because
So,
one of them's sustainable and the other one isn't.
so I'm sure, everybody they're competing, and part of that is, like you said, to say, hey, this is what we can get done. One group is saying we can get it done safely. The other group is like, hey, just point me in the right direction and I'm going to blow your mind. So
Yeah,
what are some of the craziest stunts that you've ever had to do?
I was buried alive in the Houston Astrodome Nobody had
And
ever done it before. I mean, Houdini tried it and he failed.
I mean, like what
And then,
they put you in a box, and it was before like
yeah,
a
yeah, it was
tractor
kind of
pull.
a more of a, yeah, it was kind of a magic trick. But I'd done it with my former partner for a show called Search for Houdini. There was supposed to be a tribute to Harry Houdini, and then everybody just kind of one-upped him. And so I don't know how much of a tribute that really was, but uh, my partner and I had come up with a way to do it.
Okay.
And then he did it out there, and then I did it in Houston Astrodome a month later. And so, and then I set a world record on a full body burn one time. And then I jumped a lot of cars, and
What's the
they
thing
were
that
ramp
scares you the
ramp
most?
jumps. Pardon me,
What's the thing that scares you the most?
being bored. Being bored terrifies me. I've seen me do some bad things. So, but uh, it's difficult. A regular job scares me. The people I look up to are the people who can do a regular job every day that may not be what they dreamed of. I've just had cool jobs. I've been an adult child most of my life, but I've been able to. It's been great. But my dad didn't do any of this kind of stuff,
Hmm.
and he was my hero.
So
He
describe,
worked as a computer programmer before there was any money in it.
yeah. So describe what you feel is that mental makeup that it takes to be a really good stunt person. Because let's face it, I define courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to press through something even when you do have fear. And I'm certain
Yeah,
there are times where you're looking at a stunt going, man, this could go wildly wrong, but I've got to do it anyway.
that's true. And I have this thing that I tell a lot of, I have some pretty exceptional kids, and people say, "How did you do that?" And I say, "Well, these 7 C's that I have put into them, and it applies to uh, anybody, whether you're a young parent and trying to raise kids, or you're showing up for a job to do it, or just going through life. 7 C's start off with that very thing is courage, being able to step out of your comfort zone and take a risk and pursue your dreams. It takes a lot of courage to try something new. I never met anybody that was so much as an extra on the movie set. I wanted to do it, so I went out and saw the people who were doing it, showed up, and they taught me things. Same way with diving. I never met anybody that was so much of a scuba diver. I was a really good swimmer, but never met anybody that was so much of a scuba diver, much less a commercial diver. Most dangerous job on the planet, more dangerous than special forces at wartime. It's a dangerous job. So, but that took courage to do those things. Uh, Curiosity is another one. You have to be curious. You have to be open-minded and eager to learn and explore different things. It's what gets you through. You have to be creative and embrace your imagination and uh, try to set new solutions for the world's problems. You have to be compassionate. Show up with some kindness, understanding. Be cheerful. We talked about those things too. Have a good attitude. It's contagious. Um, um, be cooperative. Life's best played as a team sport. And you learn to collaborate with others and do things and get something cool done. But and then the last one is celebrate. You've earned it.
Right.
Celebrate your accomplishments whenever you've gone through these things. Take time to do that. It's very important.
Yep.
Because if you're staying in that fight or flight all the time, you're going to burn out. You need to relax every once in a while and chill. And I could
So
get into all the physiology of why that's important
yeah.
on a health standpoint too. But it's just you've earned it. Just go out and do it. Enjoy.
So some of what I hear, if I'm kind of rounding it out, is you're a person of character and you understand the mental makeup that not just makes your job, makes you effective in your job, but also just effective in life. But
Yeah.
as you also kind of look at your mental makeup, you enjoy adventure.
Yeah.
You have put the fear of physical harm maybe kind of on the back burner,
Mhm.
recognizing that, you know what, I'm going to get bumps and bruises. I don't want to go out and, break my back, but
Oh yeah.
in order for me to
Well, you
enjoy
never
the kind of
want
work.
those things, and but it's you do dangerous things as carefully as possible.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
who's
and
so who's that person? And I don't know, maybe think through some of the people that you went to high school with or something. What's the mental makeup of the person that is not cut out for this? You got the athletes that are crazy, living on the edge and want to go get high and party all the time, live the rock star lifestyle. They can do the job and they're willing to do the job, but there's some people out there that,
they don't last.
and it just wouldn't be a good fit. They may think they want to do the job, but it's not right for them.
Somebody that wants security, because it's hit or miss kind of work, even when you're really good. You may have a few good years and think that, oh, this is great, but it's not necessarily sustainable for the long haul. I'm 63. The phone stops ringing for most guys at 40.
Wow.
So you better have something else to fall back on.
And
I
where
work
do
more
those
now.
guys typically go? Do they stay in the film industry, work in other types of roles, or
Different things. Most of them marry a rich woman, and and then other ones just go on to doing different things. It's tough. I'm working more now than I did in my natural prime, but I have a very unique situation. But the reality of the numbers is almost 90% of the people who are in the stunt field don't, or actors and Screen Actors Guild, they don't even qualify to make their insurance. They don't make enough money to meet the minimum standard for that. And that minimum standard isn't a living wage, but that's almost, it's 97.5%.
right?
And there's only 3% of them who do that enough years to get vested into the pension plan.
Okay.
3%.
Wow.
So those are the real numbers.
Okay.
And so the odds are stacked against you for having a long career in this business.
So
I've been very fortunate.
if somebody does say, you know what, I know it sounds challenging, but I want to pursue it, and they got into the business, kind of two related questions. One, how much should they expect to make in like their first year? And how do they get paid? Is it by the hour? Is it, a contract for a production? How does that work out?
Well, there are different rates for different size shows. This
Mm-hmm.
is kind of on a sliding scale. Um, and everybody gets paid the same, whether you've been doing it 20 years or you just started yesterday.
Okay.
Everybody works off that same base rate. And then whenever you do something that's particularly dangerous, you may get an adjustment on top of that because the guy that jumps the car ramp to ramp, or crashes and blows up or does the high fall or gets set on fire or blown up, he's going to make more than the guy that didn't get blown up that was standing next to him, although both of them will probably be on the stunt contract. That
Mm-hmm.
other guy will get an extra bump. Uh, First year coming out, it may take you a decade before you even get your SAG card to work on these shows of really trying networking, um, training, um, putting yourself out there, sending out headshots, resumes, putting together demo reels, developing skill sets that are marketable. But a lot of times it comes down to you fit the outfit. You were a good double.
Oh,
And the
wow.
guy that's been doing it forever that has all the skills, he's not a good double. And so I've helped out a couple of people who right out of the gate, as soon as I'd given them a little coaching, which I really don't do. I just happen to do it for these two. Uh, they got the run of a show and they worked the whole show and they made a shit ton of money. But then they didn't work much. they thought that was going to be every day. They thought that was
Okay.
going to be every. It's like you may not get another run like that for a decade.
Now, does somebody
So,
that's a popular actor and is heavily in demand and doing a lot of productions, and the easy person to pick is like Tom Cruise.
right.
Does he have somebody that is such a good fit for him that they just go with
Oh
him
yeah,
from show to show to show?
frequently.
Okay.
Some uh, actors are very loyal to their stunt players, and Tom does a lot of his own stuff. I've never worked with him, but I know people that have. But there's a stunt guy there. He may not work that much, because Tom wants to do everything. But that was another perfect example. Tom did his own stunt on some show and broke his ankle, and everybody went home.
And unlike
Well,
Tom,
I
you're not
don't
getting
think I can
paid.
talk. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't think I could have the same conversation with Tom Cruise as I could with the ones that I talk to and say, "We'll do it in my backyard."
Right.
So, but he's also the producer on those shows, and he's running everything. It's his franchise. And it's like that with a lot of people. So, but it's what's going to work best. But there are some actors who will be loyal to their stunt guys and say, "You're coming with me, you stay with me, and we'll carry on every show." But the lion's share of guys are just kind of meat and potato guys that do a little bit of everything. Sometimes we're doing a fight scene, sometimes we're doing a chase scene, sometimes we're falling off stuff, sometimes we're getting hit by stuff, sometimes we're getting blown up. You have to have some background and a little bit of everything, but knowing how to fall down is a good one, and knowing how to, because without getting hurt, so all the martial arts stuff that I did, all the wrestling stuff that I did, knowing how to get slammed and fall down and get up and do it again, because you know it's unless it's repeatable, it's not very good. It doesn't serve
Right.
anybody any good because we're going to do this several times. So that's again back in the old days. Well, it's one and done frequently, and if they wanted to repeat it, they'd have three guys in the same outfit, and you knew somebody was going to the hospital, if
Right.
not all of them.
Yeah.
And so, but there are a lot more tricks that we can employ now. And I'm very grateful for all the people that taught us how not to do stuff. So don't think of it as a slight to them, but they were figuring out, just like when I was commercial diving, the generation ahead of me was the generation that was figuring all that stuff out. And
Okay.
so my job was much easier because of the sacrifices they made. So they were the real pioneers, and they should be, applauded.
Yeah.
So,
So clearly you enjoy the exhilaration of a good stunt done well.
mhm.
And the film industry, I think one thing people don't know that haven't been in and around it is there's a whole lot of standing around and waiting as people
Oh
make
yeah,
decisions, and that can be tedious. But aside from that, when does this job suck? Nothing's ever great all the time.
I always tell people to embrace the suck, find the fun, and have a good attitude. And so I don't know that my daughters did really well, and my son. Uh, and I've told them since they were little, I said, we never lose. We're either winning or learning. So there is no bad experience. There's experiences that may have been uncomfortable, but we learned from them, so we're thankful for them. So embrace the suck, see what you're going to do next time, see what you're not going to do next time, and be thankful for the opportunity to have this knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's the attitude. So it never sucks. We're either winning or we're losing or we're learning.
Right.
And it's
Right.
one or the other. There is
Yeah.
no bad.
Good deal. So if somebody wanted to dive into this, what would be your suggestion in terms of, hey, look, go do this. This is how you stand the best chance of getting your foot in the door. What would you recommend to them?
I would say get a job as an extra, background performer, and just look around and see if this is going to be a good fit for you.
Yeah.
They pay you a little bit. They feed you. You have something interesting to talk about to your friends. and then keep doing that, and you'll see different people in different departments. And then if you have a moment where you can pull somebody aside and say, hey, what is it you're doing here, and what is your job, and can you tell me about it?
Yeah.
And then maybe they'll tell you, and maybe they're the guys that are the grips who are just working really hard, setting up lights and fixing everything that's broke. And maybe those are the guys that you think are the coolest that you want to hang around.
Right. Right.
I have a son that doesn't do stunts. He does grip work. I
Okay.
told him, I said that. He goes, what's a grip? And I said, they're the problem solvers. They get everything done. They work harder than everybody. And nobody messes with them. They're kind of the bikers of the movie business.
There we go.
You know, they solve every problem. You know.
So, perfect. Well, David, I thank you so much for being on. We're about to run out of time here, but that was super interesting and very much appreciated. And
well, it was a pleasure, and let's grab lunch soon.
we'll do it. We'll do it. All right, everybody. And if you want to learn more, come to the website, theyolodoor.com. Thanks, David.
Thank you.